A plague killed nearly half of Europe's population. It was cunning, relentless, and deadly, and it changed history forever. This is the terrifying story of the Black Death, and you are not going to want to miss this. Our story begins innocently enough. Traders are hauling goods along well-worn paths from China to Italy. It's business as usual along the Silk Road. But what they do and know is that tucked among the bales of silk and spices is something very sinister, something tiny, something deadly. A ship arrives in Sicily, Italy, bringing with it more than just exotic wares. Unknowingly, it has brought death itself, and soon all of Europe will be on a one-way trip to hell. From its humble beginnings in Asia, the plague followed trading routes like the Silk Road, until it finally arrived on European shores in 1347 aboard ships docked in Sicilian ports. Here, amidst the bustling merchants and sailors, the deadly disease began to spread its wings. In the summer of 1347, the seaside town of Messina welcomed merchants and sailors disembarking from these mammoth ships. Little did they know that these vessels were floating graveyards. On board, a chilling passenger had stowed away, an unseen menace that would soon turn their vibrant town into a ghost town. Among the exotic merchandise imported from distant lands, something sinister had found a home. Rats, both shipborne and land-based, carried the disease from one human host to another. Their presence undetected, they became unwitting soldiers in the silent invasion. The Black Death was born from the Yersinia pestis bacteria, a microscopic terror that would rewrite medieval history. These rodents, with their nocturnal habits and close proximity to humans, unwittingly spread the disease from one unsuspecting victim to another. As the plague took hold in Sicily, it was only a matter of time before it painted the rest of Europe in hues of death and despair. From here it spread inland along trade routes, moving like a predator through a field of prey. As autumn approached, the plague advanced through Italy, France, and England, steadily claiming lives and sowing fear in its path. By the end of 1348, it had reached the heart of England, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. The disease first appeared in England near the port city of Bristol, where an influx of ships had arrived from the east. From there, it moved north, striking London and then sweeping through the countryside. In these medieval towns, narrow cobblestone streets and densely packed houses provided the perfect breeding ground for the plague. Rats scurried through the undergrowth, unnoticed carriers of the deadly pestilence. People went about their daily routines, oblivious to the invisible danger lurking around every corner. In the markets, they haggled over prices, unaware that the vegetables and meat they consumed could be tainted with the disease. They attended religious services, praying for protection from harm, while the plague silently crept closer. The villagers laughed and played, not knowing that the ground beneath their feet was trembling on the edge of a precipice. For when the plague truly unleashed its wrath, none would be spared. Then it happened. A cough echoed in the marketplace. A fever broke out in the village square, and the laughter turned to screams in the streets. Bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, made its presence felt with gruesome certainty. Victims bore witness to painful swellings or buboes appearing in the groin, armpits, and neck, a grotesque testament to the plague's insidious grasp. With each throbbing boil, fear tightened its grip on the populace, whispering tales of impending doom. The symptoms worsened, leading to chills, fever, and delirium, culminating in a horrifying spectacle of death. Those unfortunate enough to succumb often perished within a week, their bodies succumbing to the plague's merciless assault. Others who survived the initial onslaught bore the scars of their ordeal, some forever crippled by the disease's after effects, a living reminder of the day death stalked their streets. As the body count rose, panic ensued. Towns descended into chaos, each new symptom, each fresh grave deepening the despair. In this danse macabre of death, no social standing, no amount of wealth could provide sanctuary. All were vulnerable before the Black Death, be they peasant or prince, monk or merchant. Only the cold embrace of death offered solace, but even that brought little respite. Fear and uncertainty took root and grew, transforming neighbor into suspect, friend into foe. Fingers pointed towards Jews, foreigners, and the ill, each group bearing the brunt of suspicion and persecution. Religious fervor mingled with terror, giving rise to accusations and violence. Some sought refuge in prayer and faith, others in flight, fleeing the plague-ridden cities for the relative safety of the countryside. But the countryside wasn't safe. The disease, carried by rats and fleas, thrived in rural areas. The Black Death had a particular affinity for densely populated regions, which the countryside often was. Rodents infested the homes and farms, spreading the disease with ease. As the plague progressed, entire villages were wiped out, leaving behind a haunting silence. Streets once filled with life became eerily empty. Homes once filled with the echoes of laughter stood abandoned and silent. Fields lay untilled, crops rotting in the ground, a grim testament to the plague's unyielding grip. Churches, once centers of community and worship, fell victim to the plague's destructive path. Bells, which had once tolled merrily, now sounded mournful dirges. Yet amid the horror and despair, glimmers of hope flickered. Religious orders, including the Flagellants, emerged to offer solace and aid. These groups of self-flagellating monks and friars sought to atone for the sins of humanity and provide comfort in the face of the plague. Despite their fervent efforts, the effectiveness of their methods was limited, and the death toll continued to mount. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Medieval medicine, steeped in tradition and folklore, offered little in the way of effective treatments. Bloodletting, a common practice aimed to balance the humors of the body, but only served to weaken victims further. Other remedies, such as herbal concoctions and amulets, were no match for the plague's relentless advance. Quarantines were employed, though often ineffective and poorly enforced. Cities and villages attempted to seal their borders, hoping to contain the disease, but the mobility of infected rats and the lack of understanding about disease transmission rendered these measures insufficient. In the absence of a cure, the search for a scapegoat intensified. Jews were persecuted, accused of poisoning wells and causing the plague. Minorities became easy targets, their presence in the midst of a horrifying crisis conveniently blamed for the unfolding tragedy. This led to pogroms and massacres, a dark stain on human history. The legacy of the Black Death, as the dust settled and the death toll became known, the true scope of the plague's impact unfolded. Nearly half of Europe's population had perished, a staggering loss of life that shook the continent to its core. The Black Death had not only claimed countless lives, but had also reshaped the course of history. Feudalism, already under strain, was weakened further. The decimation of the peasantry led to labor shortages and a decline in agricultural production, undermining the foundations of the feudal system. Social unrest and revolts erupted, challenging the existing power structures. The Black Death had become a catalyst for profound societal change. Cities and towns, once centers of trade and commerce, were left in ruins. Economic activity plummeted, trade routes disrupted, and the wheels of commerce ground to a halt. The cultural landscape was irrevocably altered as well. The devastation wrought by the plague found expression in art and literature, often depicting death and decay. The Danse Macabre, a popular theme, portrayed death as a skeletal figure dancing with people from all walks of life, reminding all that no one was exempt from its embrace. Religious fervor and skepticism intertwined in a complex tapestry of faith and doubt. The traditional authority of the Church was challenged as people grappled with questions of mortality and the nature of God. One undeniable aspect of the Black Death's legacy was its contribution to scientific progress. The increased understanding of anatomy and the human body, spurred partly by dissections, laid the groundwork for future anatomical discoveries. Though born out of tragedy, the pursuit of knowledge advanced, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. As the memory of the Black Death faded into history, its impact continued to resonate. The scars left by the plague ran deep, shaping the social, economic, and religious contours of Europe for centuries to come. From death came change, and the world would never be the same. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new. If you want to learn more about history's darkest moments, stay tuned for more content.